So in this video, we'll continue our exploration of violence in human nature, continuing to focus on Zinn, and more specifically, continuing to focus on the argument from psychology. If you remember from last time, Zinn suggests that the argument from psychology fails because the most famous experiment that's taken to support the claim that violence is part of human nature, in fact, fails to support that claim. And we ended last time by asking, but is there other relevant evidence from psychology that Zinn doesn't consider? And I suggested that there is. Specifically, there's evidence dealing with intergroup relations. Now, I'm not going to run through experiments here that talk about intergroup relations, but I'll just tell you what some of the findings are. So when you have subjects divide up by group, even if the groups are created arbitrarily, subjects will distribute more rewards and fewer punishments to members of their own group when they're tasked with distributing rewards and punishments and fewer rewards and more punishments to members of the other group. And again, this happens even if you distribute people arbitrarily. So you can even let them know that the groupings are arbitrary. If I have you count off 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and send all the ones to one side of the room and all the twos to the other side of the room, and then give you a task that puts you in a little bit of competition and ask you to distribute rewards and punishments, even if the rewards you distribute will have nothing to do with the rewards you get, and the punishments you distribute will have nothing to do with the punishments you get, you'll still distribute more rewards and fewer punishments to members of your own group. You'll also evaluate performance and characteristics differently. So you'll say that people in my group were really focused and worked hard, and people in the other group weren't focused and didn't work hard. The good people ended up in my group, the bad people ended up in the other group. This happens regularly with sports teams. I see it with children's sports teams all the time, where the parents think that the children on the other team and the parents on the other team are behaving badly, as if the political boundary that marks the distinction between Gilbert and Ames, for example, which marks whether you're on Ames soccer or Gilbert soccer, is a meaningful distinction in terms of the nature of the people who live in one place or another. You'll also attribute more negative behaviors to outgroup members, people you've marked as members of the other group, and more positive behaviors to in-group members. And now come the two that I think are most important. You'll attribute outgroup members good behaviors to their situation, but their bad behaviors to their character. And you'll attribute in-group members good behavior to their character, but their bad behavior to their situation. This last thing here is what you might think of as a group-level version of what's sometimes called the fundamental attribution error. The fundamental attribution error is roughly this. You attribute your own good behavior to your character, but your own bad behavior to your circumstance. And you attribute other people's good behavior to their circumstance and their bad behavior to their character. You can see this arise if you're a driver. So if you're driving, or if you drive with other people, you'll regularly hear things like this when someone gets cut off. That idiot, what's wrong with them? That is, when someone cuts you off, it's something wrong with them that led them to cut you off, something about their character. But if you cut someone off, it's always, oh, I was so tired, or the driver behind me forced me to do it, or I didn't mean to do it, or I'm really in a hurry, or whatever. It's your circumstance that pushes you to cut the person off. And that's the fundamental attribution error, when you think other people's character leads them to drive badly, but you think when you drive badly, it's because of your circumstance. Apply that at the group level, and you get this result, that you attribute other people's good behaviors when they're marked as outgroup to their situation and their bad behaviors to their character, but you attribute other people's good behaviors to their character when they're marked as in-group, but their bad behaviors to the situation. Now, the reason I said this one is really important is it prevents you from providing evidence that defeats your bad views. So suppose I have an outgroup bias against members of a particular group. Well, I think they're bad. Then I see them behave well, like I see someone be nice, a member of that group be nice to someone. My thought will be, oh, the situation forced that upon them, so it won't change my view that they have bad character. And suppose I see someone from my own group behave badly, my thought will be the situation forced that upon them, so it won't change my view that they have good character. Well, this is epistemically pernicious. It's bad from the point of view of trying to figure out what's true and what's false, because it prevents you from getting evidence that counters your false beliefs, supposing they are false. Incidentally, Dr. Seuss knew this. We could run through some experiments that support this, but Dr. Seuss laid the laid the picture on the line. So rather than look at the evidence, we'll just look at the picture in a book called The Butter Battle Book. He describes two populations, the Ukes and the Zooks, and these are enemies because they butter their bread on the opposite sides. So what Dr. Seuss is saying here, in effect, is that any arbitrary distinction can lead people to group themselves, and then once they group themselves, they'll start exhibiting biases against members that they mark as outgroup. In the book story, the Ukes exhibit strong biases against the group, the Zooks, and vice versa. These prejudices lead them into an arms race that threatens to destroy all life. The book ends actually with one Uke and one Zook standing on a wall that divides the two communities, each holding a little bomb that their military has developed, such that if it's dropped, it will destroy the whole civilization. And there's a little boy who's the grandson, I believe, of the one in blue, and he says, "Grandpa," I shouted, "be careful. Oh, gee, who's going to drop it? Will you or will he?" "Be patient," said Grandpa. "We'll see, we will see." That's how the book ends. It's not one of the more uplifting Dr. Seuss books. And the lesson that Dr. Seuss was trying to get across is this, that once someone groups us along any dimension, however trivial it may be an important dimension, it may be a trivial dimension, we'll begin exhibiting all of the prejudices discussed above. Once someone emphasizes our difference, we'll begin exhibiting these prejudices, whereas emphasizing our commonality can help prevent us from exhibiting these prejudices. One lesson here is if you want to avoid exhibiting these kinds of prejudices, you're better off emphasizing commonalities among people than differences. Okay, so back to the experiment from psychology. As I said, Zinn takes himself to show that the first premise is false. That is, he takes himself to show that experiments from psychology don't in fact show that we're predisposed to behave violently once fear of punishment is removed, because there is no government in place or because an authority figure gives us license to behave badly. But we put the dashed line here because Zinn doesn't consider a wide range of experiments from psychology, and some of these other experiments may provide better support for one. I'm not saying they do, but it's an open question. Next time, we'll look at what Zinn says about arguments from history. Basically, arguments from history hold that because history is so full of violence, specifically warfare, it shows that violence must be part of human nature.